Okay, we are in Unit 8, Section 2, Part 2 of the Spanish American War. Let's pick up where we left off. Remember all of the different causes of the Spanish American War. First, we had those economic causes, the United States business interest in the sugarcane industry. We have the humanitarian motives, which was the United States being able to recognize that fight against an oppressive ruler. We have American jingoism, which was the nationalism of the United States on steroids, the need to go to war to protect our image of being the protector of independence. We had yellow journalism, the exaggerated headlines of the newspapers to get the American public to want to go to war. The Dato May letter that was published calling our president weak and stupid that gets the United States people pretty rowdy. And then we have the final tipping point of the sinking of the USS Maine, which makes the American people think that the Spanish government has now attacked us directly when we were not the aggressor. So, our nation is going to go to war. On April 11th, 1898, President McKinley is going to ask Congress to declare war because remember, the president can't do that on their own. He's going to ask for a declaration of war against the Spanish in Cuba. Congress is going to quickly agree and declare war on Spain. When we declare war, though, it's important to know that at the very beginning it included a resolution, which is a comment in the declaration of war, that the United States had no intention on annexing Cuba. Remember, annex means to add. So this just means that when we said we were going to war, we made the promise that we were not going to take Cuba afterwards. This war was specifically to get Cuba their independence. McKinley is going to mobilize for war, gathering over 100,000 volunteers. That is mainly because of the yellow journalism that had been used, the stories that were published in the paper. People are ready. They're like, let's go fight. We hate the Spanish. Let's go protect Cuba. We also are going to issue a naval blockade around Cuba in order to keep the Spanish out. We wanted to make sure that whoever was there, whatever Spanish forces were there, nobody else was getting in. Now, in response to all of these actions by the United States, Spain is going to declare war on us in return. So now we are officially, as of April of 1898, we are officially in war. When we're in Cuba, the soldiers immediately super excited to join the war efforts, but they don't really know what they're signing up for. At this time, we didn't really have a trained and ready military force to just send into war. These are volunteers, okay? They are going to be poorly trained. They're also going to be poorly supplied. Our economy had not realized that we needed to not only have a standing, trained, ready military, but we didn't have a stockpile ready to fight a war. Okay, it's not that we were just hanging out here with nothing, but we didn't have the equipment necessary to go and fight. We also were a little naive on what kind of clothing we should probably send our guys with down to Cuba. We equipped these volunteers with wool uniforms. Now, that was not smart. It is about 10 million degrees down in Cuba, and wool is not what I would want to be wearing down there. We also aren't getting them the proper supplies of food. Oftentimes, they're getting rotten or contaminated food supplies, and we're kind of outnumbered 7-1. That none of this is looking good for the United States. Teddy Roosevelt, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy to William McKinley, is going to step out of his position in the cabinet as the Assistant Secretary to the Navy, and he is going to say, I'm going to go fight. I'm going to lead my own cavalry unit. And he is going to lead the unit known as the Rough Riders. They are the first U.S. volunteer cavalry unit. He is going to see kind of a mix of men, a ragtag group here. We've got, uh, uh, people from the New England states that were highly educated, wealthy men. We've got people from the West who have no idea what's going on. And we have people from the South who have completely different backgrounds to those rich Yankee yuppies of the North. So we have a mix of just about everybody. The intent was to be men from Indian Territory, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, but they get a little bit of everyone. Now, the Rough Riders are going to be known for their major victory in the San Juan Hills. Teddy Roosevelt, from fighting in the war and being able to return from the Spanish American War, gets some pretty good clout when it comes to the American people. They love him, they love a fighter, they love a good story in the military. And that gives him kind of a push in his political career. In the Spanish American War, though, we're going to see 3,000 Americans die throughout the war. But look at this number. Only 380 of that 3,000 Americans are going to die in combat. Many of them are going to die of diseases such as yellow fever and malaria. So the massive amount of that death toll in the Spanish American War is going to come not from combat, but from disease. The effects of the war is coming at you rather quickly. We aren't going to look at specific battles or anything like that, because the true effect and the reason that we study the Spanish American War is how the United States looks after the war. Okay, Secretary of State at the time, John Hay, is going to call the Spanish American War a splendid little war because it only lasts for 4 months. Now, all of the unpreparedness that I told you about on the last slide might have sounded like the United States was not in a good position to win, but Spain was even less prepared. Okay, so the United States squeaks by, and we're going to get ourselves to the Treaty of Paris that officially ends the war and come out looking like a victor. The Treaty of Paris, that's signed by the United States and Spain, ending the war, gets Spain to give up control of Puerto Rico and Guam to the United States. Spain is also going to sell the Philippines to the United States for $20 million. And the whole reason we are fighting this war, to gain Cuban independence, also gets official in the Treaty of Paris. So, the United States is going to gain some pretty important territory: Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines, and Cuba gets their independence. These are big victories for the United States in this war because now we are expanding. Remember, land equals power. And at the end of this war, we just got some land, and that makes us look powerful. And we defeated Spain. That makes us look pretty good. We are now starting to bring ourselves out of this neutrality, out of this infancy of the United States, where we weren't really for sure if we were standing on our own feet yet, to the point where we get looked at as a world power by defeating the Spanish Empire. Doesn't matter how weak they were, we still defeated them. That still makes us look good. But other effects of the war aren't going to make us look so good. McKinley is going to gain the Philippines from that purchase in the Treaty of Paris, but the Philippines did not want to be controlled by the United States. Now, McKinley says the United States has a responsibility to the Philippines to make sure that they are regulated, that they are kind of led in the right direction. And it just so happens that the real reason McKinley wants the Philippines is because they're a stepping stone to China. Look at that first political cartoon up there. Uncle Sam carrying all of the major goods that are produced in the United States, stepping on the Philippines with an eye right straight towards the markets of China. We just wanted to sell goods to China and we wanted a place to stop along the way in order to make it easier. So we don't really care about the Filipinos. All we care about is being able to sell and make money in the Chinese markets. Now, there is going to be a Philippine insurrection because of the purchase the United States makes of the Philippines. Filipino rebels are going to be led by a guy named Emilio Aguinaldo, and he is going to lead an uprising against the American colonizer because that's exactly what we did. We just bought a piece of land that we are going to use as a resource to get to China. We have now become the evil, the enemy that we once fought against. Okay, this Philippine insurrection is going to last 3 years, which we only fought the Spanish American War for 4 months and we got the Philippines. Then we have to fight for 3 more years. It's going to cost us 4,000 lives, which is 10 times more that we lost in the actual combat to get the Philippines. So what we're going to see here is the beginnings of the United States as an imperialistic power. And what we learn is that the US, under the control of McKinley, is going to start supporting the expansion of the United States. We already went from coast to coast, and now we need to go beyond that. And we're going to have this argument of imperialists who agree that we should go and take these weaker nations versus the anti-imperialists who say that we don't need to. We are big enough. We can assert our dominance in another way. But we have, with the Spanish American War, become a world power. We are on our way to that superpower status because now we have defeated one of the empires in Europe. Next time we come together, we're going to talk about American imperialism and what the heck that means for the United States. Don't forget about your homework. Any questions? Let me know.